Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mayan Srisuk. I graduated from Northeastern, the McKim School of Business in 2020. I'm currently working in New York as a digital marketer at Dynasty Financial Partners. And on behalf of Northeastern University and its young global leaders, I want to welcome you to Global Perspective Asia. Global Perspective Asia is a program that brings together thought leaders in business, social impact, entrepreneurship, and innovation for a compelling exchange of ideas. Our aim is to build a platform to share knowledge and affect change. We meet every other month, and our focus moves to a new region for each session. I'm proud to welcome you to Global Perspective Asia today. And today we hope to discuss Asia's essential elements of resilience and what the future could hold for its economy. But before we go any further, it is my honor to introduce the Senior Vice President of Advancement of Northeastern University, Diane Mcguire. Diane has been at the helm of Northeastern University Advancement since 2007. She oversees a broad range of efforts, including development, alumni relations, corporate and foundation relations, and interdisciplinary initiatives. Diana will tell you more about Northeastern and Asia.
Thank you so much, Mayan, and thank you to everyone for participating in today's Global Perspectives Asia. As we start, I just wanted to say, and this is one of those things that I think we will hear pretty much in every program like this over the next few weeks, months, perhaps even the next few years, about how long it's been since we have been able to be together, or how long we've been in this strange moment in our world's history. So given that it is about 13 months into this pandemic and what it's been like to be part of a team that is working within the context of a global university and a global network of students, alumni, parents, friends, employers, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our hosts today, Mayan, James Steinberg, and all of the YGL members and hosts that we have had over this last year. You have been absolutely instrumental in keeping us connected, and keeping us connected not only in a social sense, but keeping us connected and moving forward in exploring and learning more about issues facing so many aspects of our world today. We are so, so grateful for your leadership. And that is why you are indeed not just young, not just global, but absolutely leaders, full stop. So you exemplify those best characteristics of Northeastern that we like to instill and talk about within our students and our wider alumni community: global agility, entrepreneurial spirit, lifelong learning across this network of campuses and communities that we have at Northeastern. And I want to especially thank our panelists today, Mr. Tri Pham and Mr. Chu Chow, who are going to be sharing their insights and their perspectives with us, as well as a number of faculty. I think that it's always dangerous, but I want to call out two of our faculty who I believe are with us today, who hopefully will be able to add their own insights as well, Ravi Ramamurthy and Margaret Wu. So thank you to both of them for being part of this. And Northeastern does have a large and vibrant presence in Asia, across Asia. And our Global Leadership Summit, we'll hope to get back to doing these Global Leadership Summits in person in the future. But our Global Leadership Summit that took place in the spring of 2019 in Shanghai drew literally hundreds of people, ranging from prospective students who were interested in pursuing their studies at Northeastern, to people in the entertainment industry, in finance, in brands ranging from Disney to L'Oreal. And that is, I think, the goal that we have for coming together today, is to learn not only about a region, but learn about how we can make a difference in our own sectors, but also our communities and make an impact on the world. So thank you to everyone for being here. I look forward to hearing this program today. Thank you again to our YGL members, and I will look forward to seeing all of us, if not on Zoom, in a room very soon.
Thank you very much, Diane. In a minute, I will be introducing you to my fellow young global leader, James Steinberg. James and I will be the co-hosts for today. But first, I want to call your attention to a few features of this Zoom session. You are welcome to introduce yourself by giving your name and your city or country of residence in the side chat bar. Questions to the panelists should be asked in the Q&A box. And our program will now begin with a 30-minute panel discussion moderated by myself and James. So James, you've been working in Asia since you graduated from Curry College in 2014. To introduce you in your own words, you started a few companies since graduated. One raised a lot of money and imploded, one bootstrap and sold. Most recently, you had a logistic company that sold in China. You're a member of Northeastern Young Global Leaders, and you're currently based in Taipei. Take it away, James.
Thanks, Mayan. 2 out of 3, not bad. I look forward to what promises to be a good discussion with our 2 distinguished panelists. Tri Pham is in Vietnam, and Chiu Chao is in Brooklyn, but originally from Hong Kong. And my first question is for Chiu Chao. Chiu, you co-founded a company called OpenTrons in 2013. It's a biotech company with nearly 100 employees. Now, OpenTrons provides automation to science labs, but to get people to really understand what OpenTrons does, maybe I should first ask you, how is science done? Like, if I put on a lab coat, go to a lab, where am I going to spend most of my time? Oh, can we hear you?
Yep. So thank you for inviting me for the panel. And coming back to how is science done? It's not like all the video you saw on the news, all robots, really, you rarely see any human being. Those are for the show. In reality, when you go to the lab, most of your life is not like, reading papers and everything. Is using this little device called pipetter. Because any one of us have go for high school or biology in any time in their life, right? This is where you spend, I would say, at least 50% of your time in the lab. But even worse, majority, I would say 90% of the science today, from cancer research to crops to vaccine development, everything are done by hand. In fact, is at least 90%. So this is where the state of the art has been. And unfortunately, that's not what scientists want to do. Scientists want to use their brain, studying the gene, right? Doing experiment on a as needed base. However, since the automation is not widely available in the science, 90% of the work in those areas are done by hand. And that's really where I started the company for. I had been working on the bench for a decade. I really don't like working on the bench because this is not where my value is, but I have to. So when I started OpenTron, that was a time that I was in the middle of another startup. Then I just can't spend the time on the bench anymore. Then I start hacking the automation equipment using a 3D printer. And that's where it really comes down to. And unfortunately, even before COVID, the automation has not been embraced by the world. COVID really changed science because now the volume has just surged, as we all know, right? So I think this is where it really comes back to is today science is really a very labor intensive, but has changed recently. So I'm glad actually.
Gotcha. And just for reference, what is your background in? Is it hacking, like computer science, engineering, biology?
Right. I'm glad you asked. I'm a jack of all trades. My background is in physics and engineering, and I joined a startup like 25 years ago, and I just in love with science. They can't kick me out anymore. I just love this. I want to change the world, and that's why I start learning. And people ask me what is your expertise. I say, I will learn anything. I'm one of the guy just love to learn. And I learned how to code. I learned how to do fixing most of the stuff and build and destroy it and rebuild it.
Cool. And you got into that through a biohacking space, right?
Yes,
if I'm
correct.
not correct.
Yeah, exactly.
So just if people are curious, there's these labs. There's 2 or 3 in New York. There might be 1 or 2 in Boston, where maybe after COVID, basically you can go to these places and take classes or just basically hack on things and meet people who are trying out companies and just random inventions in biology.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. Tri, my next question is for you. You spent the past 35 years working in the United States, more specifically in Washington, and in a number of prestigious institutions before relocating to Vietnam. You were the vice chairman of BTEXCO and then went on, and then you were the COO of Deutsche Bank Vietnam. And today you're chairman of your own capital advisor, VNX. Can you tell us more about your company and why you choose to start it in Vietnam?
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Northeastern, for I feel that I'm honored to basically to be invited in this platform all the way, from Vietnam. So first, thank you. Second point is that I think that I think by design or something like that, but Chill and me is like the yin and yang of the world here. I mean, Chill is about innovations, excitement. He wants to crack things open and build things up. Whereas my story is basically somebody who wants to go back in time. So I grew up in the US, left Vietnam when I was 15 years old in 1975, went high school, went to college, got my first job at the World Bank and stayed there for 28, 29 years. And then in 2007, God sent me back to my homeland, which is Vietnam. And I came back to get to refine my soul and being a bridge from the West to Vietnam. So I'm setting up this platform, and the name of the company is the Nexus. Nexus is where things are attached, where things are bridged. And I think that's exactly what we've been doing here in 3 years in Vietnam, trying to connect the world and Vietnam. So my journey is a journey of going back to the past, whereas I think Chill is going toward the future. All of us are doing something which I think, in a sense, helping everyone to have that journey. So my job is very, very straightforward. I'm sitting here assisting people, assisting local company to seek foreign funds, to assist foreign offshore funds and foreigners or foreign company to come to Vietnam to seek that type of opportunities that you always read in the economics textbook called frontier market opportunity. So that's where I am right now.
Okay. And just to dive deeper a little bit on that, so we are both 2 people that traveled, outside of our country and then made our way back to Asia. What are some characteristics or mental frame you think a student or someone who left their country and came back should have in order to succeed in their home country? Yes, succeed in their home country, Mr. Tree.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty simple and it's pretty straightforward. I think when you talk about Asia nowadays, you talk about different Asia. China is quite different from Vietnam. Vietnam is quite different the Philippines and so on and so forth. But I gave a speech to Eurocharm a year ago, and I said that I can summarize my 13 years of experience working locally on the ground in 2 minutes and in 3 things. So let's do that in 2 minutes and 3 things. So what I have learned in 13 years in Vietnam, in the developing country, is pretty straightforward. One, when I was 21 years old, got my first job at the World Bank, I walked out to Fidelity office in 19 and K Street in Washington, D.C. and opened my own account. The advisor asked me the first question, Not how much money I have, not how much return I want to get. He asked me, how long do I want to get my money back? So horizon, investment horizon, durations. How long you want to be in your new job? How long you be investing? The duration, the horizon is very important because that would dictate everything else. So that would be the first brief advice I give to anyone who wants to go to Asia to invest. Because many Westerners, many Americans come to Vietnam and start thinking 2 years, 3 years. Asian don't think 2 or 3 years. Asian think 10 years, 20 years. So that would dictate your behavior. That would dictate the way that you do things in these countries. And I think that's important to know. The second thing that I want to mention is that in college or in grad school, you learn about risk. So what is risk? Definition of risk. It's about volatility. And the definition of emerging market and frontier market or any of these development countries is high volatility. It's high return and higher volatility. You have to be able to sustain the volatility in your business planning, in your personal behavior, and so on and so forth. So you have to pay attention to volatility when you come to Asia and when you do something here. So that's the second point. And we can go deeper and so on and so forth. And the third thing is what I have learned in my 40 years as bankers. I spent 28 years with the World Bank IFC, 7 years with Dutch Bank. And this whole time, I learned only one thing, and that is KYC, know your client. So whenever you go to any place, anywhere in the world, not Asia, not Europe, not anywhere, you need to know your client. You need to know in front of you who is your counterpart, what he and she aspire to do, what are their cultural background, what they believe in. That is very important. So those three things that's it. That's the three things I would advise anybody who wants to go to Vietnam or to go to Asia, anywhere else.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for both of you. What would, like, if I was just graduating or maybe even a little older, and I wanted to seize an opportunity or start a company or basically, do something big, what advice or differences would you say there are in a developing country versus the U.S. or a major city in the U.S. really?
Chill.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. I think the city I've been in is mainly New York, Boston, the Bay Area, and Shenzhen. That basically the four cities that I have been raising money and at least try to raise money and all this, right? So if I would have started up again, being a small, naive, exciting, crazy ideas things, right? Is having seen all these four cities, the only place I know of really someone will listen to your crazy story is definitely not Boston. Definitely not New York, by the way, unless you're in fintech. Even in fintech nowadays change, and definitely not China, because China have a lot of, especially anything about money. There's a lot of rules. Unless you're local Chinese, that you have zero chance to get the money. I was raised in Hong Kong, but I left China 50 years ago, literally. So it's been a long time. The only place that I can think of is literally the Bay Area. There are enough people that is crazy enough to endorse your idea. Doesn't matter how crazy that is. I can name a few, but just don't go that far. and this is where the innovation really driven by, because it doesn't matter what your idea is, someone have to fund it in the beginning. Doesn't matter $1 or $1 million, right? So I would definitely see is the only place I could think of is the Bay Area. And in fact, Bay Area have become a network or international company from India to like the Philippines and all this company into the Bay Area, raising money too. So yeah.
Do you have a different perspective, Tree?
No, I think it's just I think again my whole conversation today with you is actually it's pretty simple. It's very maybe a little bit boring, But when I was returning to Vietnam on my flight from Washington, D.C., taking my wife and my 3 children back to Vietnam, I remember I was telling my wife, who actually grew up in the U.S., she was actually a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force, of course, retired, medical doctor. And I remember telling her, I said, look, we are back to Vietnam, which means that I can only give you whatever, because I'm older. I've been back and forth a few times. So I said, what I said to her, I would say to you. You are been in Asia, but someone else who's never been in Asia wants to come back to Asia or even come to Vietnam. By the way, I apologize if my experience might not concur with those who's been in China or some other like Taiwan, China, which are basically a developed country more than a developing country, right? So for me, I remember I was saying to her, now I'm saying to you as a newcomer, what we have been brought up in the US, educating US, what they teach us, who, where, why, when, what, how, correct? Forget about 5, just remember 1, who. I think that is key, because if you look into the endowments of Vietnam, we have very good natural endowment, but we have tremendous human endowment, and the whole Asia is growing, is exploding with opportunities because of what? Because of the people. The people are striving to innovate, to do business, to make a better life for themselves. So if I'm young, hungry for opportunities, I go to Asia, and I want to be told that the most important element that is the foundation of all the things that I will be trying to do is people. You have to develop the relationship, and relationship is not what's your name, give business card, but to know, like I say, KYC, that's a Western concept, isn't it? To know the people in front of you, to respect the people in front of you, to develop that trust relationship, right? That you have. And I think that's the only thing I can give it to you. I mean, I can give you my nice advice on that.
Okay, understood. So you're kind of saying it's a lot of networking, and who you know can help a lot in those
Correct.
Situations.
Correct.
For you, Joe, you were saying that you were basically saying if you're super early stage, Silicon Valley is like the place to be. Do you see an advantage for some of these other cities if like you're later stage, or maybe Shenzhen if you're like a hardware company? What did you see as an advantage for those cities? For like what kind of stage seemed to work out?
Right, I totally is a stage related relevant, right? So I say coming in from the U.S. side, unless you have, and I do know some friends who was Chinese, they moved back to China to do startup. Which, by the way, if you are in that situation, the availability of fund is very, very nice. I see some startup had go through the Bay Area startup program and go back. They raise much faster and easier than any other place I have heard of. But if you come back to the US side, I think once you go through the seed stage, while you're doing the Series A, you come back to the metric, right? The metrics in the end is very simple. You have the growth, you have the projection, how big the market. Those are very simple. In that case, doesn't matter where you are in Chicago, or a lot of startup now move down to Miami because of tax reason and all this. So it's kind of interesting, because once you go through the initial round, then you can literally move around. So I definitely see once you go through that stage, there's not really a limitation on where you are.
Right, and I also have to point out your current company is in Brooklyn, so I have to ask why, what made you pick there and not Silicon Valley?
Yeah, the problem is, number one, I've been in living in the East Coast for 30 years. I love it. I love the cold. I tell people I'm a little crazy. I like the snow and everything. Number one. Number two is actually people do ask, why you stick it, New York is such an expensive area, da da da. But I also argue the other way. In fact, I recently have a discussion with another startup program. They're doing a new program. They was talking about which city to go. I told them, number one, the problem is you need an area that is metropolitan enough you get pull the talent. Startup is not about a company by itself. It's about people, just like everything else. It's about people. You need to give people an incentive to live in the area they enjoy. Of course, we can go to Boyers, Idaho, population of a couple thousand. The cost of living is cheap, but no one wants to live there unless you want to do hunting, right? So a lot of coder or developer or hardware, anywhere people, you need them to have a common goal. They can live together. Even though I totally agree, the expenses and everything is crazy. But what it come back to is, can you pull enough talent to make the team work?
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. And then I like to segue it into one of the topic that we are all currently in right now, COVID-19. The pandemic was obviously a major disruptor in trade and investment in and out of Asia. So this is a question for both of you, Tree and Chill. How does it affect your companies, and how will it affect your future investment, and what major changes do you expect to see in the immediate future for both of your companies, as well as the economy of Asia?
Mm-hmm.
Jill?
Sure. Yeah. So is I think just like I think there was an interview last weekend from Colin Powell, the current Fed chair. He was really he's the one guy I really admire on that job. It's a tough job. He sits on fire every day, literally. But he basically say, in this economy, there is up and down. There are some business doing absolutely crazy, and there's some it just destroyed it. And we in OpenTron's case, especially in lab automation, we were the one that really go skyrocket. The reason is, as we all know, right? Testing is in high demand. You just have so many samples that no one can handle. So in our business during this COVID, we were just selling out crazy, and we quadrupled the team. We're like a couple hundred people now. Is absolutely amazing. And I think it also pushed the technology, and also the demand of all the world changed substantially. And let me bring a story closer to home. Again, I'm more familiar with China than any other in the region, because we have a factory in Shenzhen. In the case of China, the automation was not really on the frontier, by the way. People think they are, they were not. Again, you are talking about one of the biggest country in the world with human. And even if we not hand, you just cannot handle the workflow, right? So a couple of the top companies, some of them use our equipment also to enable the automation. And what happened in that essence is they were now changing the dynamic from all manual process, as I mentioned before, you're doing by hand all day, right? Now you're a machine that literally works 24/7, and you not just have one, you have a farm of them. So that really changed the dynamic on the whole testing phase. In that regard. And people don't realize, even today in US alone, you're talking about still after this almost post pandemic, we still are testing millions of tests a day. You just cannot be done by hand. So I think in that regard, the pandemic pushed the technology, especially the healthcare side, much faster than anyone can anticipate. Which is on one hand, I think it's sad that pandemic hurt the economy, hurt people so much. But on the other hand, I think after we come off, we become a much stronger world than before.
Thank you for the very insightful answer, Chill. Mr. Tree, what about your thoughts on how COVID-19 is disrupting countries?
I think what I have learned from this thing called pandemic is that in life, everything is possible. Everything is possible.
Totally.
let me go back a little bit, even before the pandemic. When I was in the US in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, remember, if you look back into the current state of the world at that time, we were talking about global world, global village. Yeah, there were free trades, there was equality. And when I was leaving the United States of America, Obama was elected, right? A black man ever been elected. What happened? What has happened, right? That global village, that global world is no longer there, correct? And then the pandemic hits. What it has done is that, if you notice, during this pandemic, the country that has the best healthcare system, that has the best democracy, suffer more than the one who doesn't. So Vietnam, for example, has what? Our 100 million, we have 1,000 deaths. Next year we expect, this year we're expecting 4.6 to 5% GDP growth, while the rest of some of the neighboring country has minus growth, right? So I think I don't have the answer on the overall philosophical sense, or in the what's going to happen 6 months from now, 1 year. I don't have the answer for that. But what I do know is that the pandemic, from very basic business level to all the way to global level, it basically opens up a lot of things that we haven't been taught, and we have taken things for granted, right? Like freedom, like freedom, like there's a lot of things we take it for granted. Now we say, oh, wait a minute, time out here. So what is the trade-off here, right? Do we want this or do we want that? Which one is important? So I think it's actually it's an opportunity for me, for Vietnam as a whole. We have been absolutely lucky. We have been very, very, very lucky. And as far as my company is concerned, as far as business in Vietnam is concerned, basically it has 100 million people to support the economic growth. It basically looks inward. And I think every other country do the same. We all look inward. We find the strength that we can build, and then restart the whole thing again. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a world politician to be able to give an answer. But I think what we have to take is what it provides, and then work from there and get the basic things, entrenched, and then let's move on. But for my business, it was the busiest year. For the last 12 months, it's been the busiest, because when life is good, nobody have anything to worry about. When life is not so good, then they can say, oh, Tree, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? How do we do this? So I think that actually is an opportunity for all of us to get closer together. So we don't take it for granted anymore, so that we don't say, oh, I don't need that guy. I don't need that thing. So everything can be closer together and can be supported to each other. I guess that's what I've learned.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to read the Q&A because it was related, but basically they were asking from Hung Tran. It's basically, do you expect that working from home is here to stay, or is it more for only firms that can afford it? And what are your thoughts on that?
I think it will be a hybrid. Before, I think the business model, I always embrace work whatever you want. You can work in a yard if you can, right? And I think it's really come back to the productivity. And I think by now, all the firm in the world know people are still productive. I think people realize productivity, efficiency, all this is not counting on you show up at work every day, right? It's really is where can you make the best out of it. Of course, you are in production or really like lab testing and all this, you just can't do it, right? But on the other hand, you could do it in a hybrid mode, meaning sometimes you have to do certain work, you have to be in the office, talk to people. But on the other hand, A lot of time we, especially in tech, right? We need to write the code. We got to start designing things. It's much easier to design it, work in your own environment. So I think that the hybrid model should be really coming into place, much more obvious than before. Yeah.
Because you Opentrons is like a part. It's partly code, right? But it's
Yes.
also like this physical robot. So
Exactly.
So some jobs probably like can't be remote. Or
Yeah.
are you saying they could sometimes be remote, like every?
Sometimes they can remote. For instance, some of the testing people, they will write the code, the script, because our machine actually we go so far beyond every single one day, especially during COVID in the beginning. Everybody get a robot in the house. A robot is cheap anyway, and then actually make the work possible. In fact, a lot of our client when they start signing us on, we just basically tell them, you just order a robot to your house, and then they actually enjoy that. So in fact, we find out there's another hurdle before, like our equipment used to ship to a lab, and then people can only touch it when they are in the lab. And sometimes even in the lab, your time is limited. You get sidetracked and everything. Instead, now a lot of people will say, okay, I want to stay home Friday or Thursday, Friday, make this thing work first. And then they're the same equipment in the lab. Now they set it up. So that kind of actually improve the productivity.
And your thoughts, Tree?
I think I just want to add to what you said. I think obviously there is a positive side to this thing. I mean, this whole thing will force human being to be more efficient, to be more effective, coming up with tools and machines and techniques and process that would increase the productivity, and lessen the downtime or whatever, the unnecessary time. But on the other side of it, I still think that there is we are human beings, and I said that I'm not a social sociologist or or scientist to be able to say this in advance. But I still think that human beings are human beings. We need interaction. As a matter of fact, what the pandemic has done actually is to bring our family close together. I mean, I think within the last 12 months, I've been talking to my brother and sister more than I've been doing this for the last 10 years, right? So I think that is the positive side. But I think the needs and the design to feel the person in front of you or to touch your parents, I still think it's there, and I think that for me. It will be there. So whether working from home or not traveling to see your family, I think those type of things will need to be recalibrated, and will basically get back to fulfill our human basic needs. And I hope so.
Good. Thank you for that question. And to dive deeper in that question too, on the topic of being closer to everyone, we have a question from the audience asking basically around organizational culture. So how do we maintain a company's culture when everyone's working, in a hybrid model, or we're all working from home, separate from each other?
Yeah, I don't really have an answer on that. We're still learning. Unfortunately, I wish I could say this is the magic. We try little different things on and off. I think at least in US case, we kind of foresee once we get everybody vaccinated, which is still a tough subject because we can't really force everybody to vaccinate it. So it's kind of I would say I don't know how to do that correctly yet.
I think it will be from my experience. Right now, I have only a few staff because we are an advisory platform. But I used to lead 100-person operation here for Deutsche Bank. I think it will be a challenge. I think it will really be a challenge. I think if you are in a high-tech industry like Apple or Google, which your product is high-tech and you have a certain processes to get to that, to deliver that product, it's already been, focused on efficiency. But if you are a manufacturing, putting together, I don't know, plastic can or whatever, I think it will be a challenge for organization. I'm sure another Peter Drucker will come out with something, and so on and so forth. But I think we'll be challenged.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have to jump in here because I've been working in Shanghai, Taipei, and Hong Kong all during this pandemic, and China basically had, it started there, and then they have it under control. Hong Kong's been going through cycles of controlling it and not controlling it, and Taiwan never had it out of control. And if that's any indication of the future for the West when they figure it out, I think 90% of the companies are going to go back to being not remote, as unfortunate as that is. I think they'll be kicking and screaming before they, unless they're forced to. I think some percent of people actually don't like remote, which is interesting. And I think the maybe small sliver of hope, if you are really into remote working, is that maybe investors don't see it as like a death knell for their companies and will allow it. And so maybe if you're a new employee and you go for the same pay or even less pay, but it allows remote, maybe that'll be a competitive edge for those companies who are open to it. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. What I wanted to ask you guys about was about the communities that you're in terms of like how you help each other or how innovation happens, whether that's in startups, Chio, in both Shenzhen and the US, or Tree in terms of investment and the type of innovation you can get in a developing country that maybe those type of opportunities don't even exist in other areas.
Yeah, I definitely see the community is a big driving force. Unfortunately, since I'm very embedded with different accelerator, and in the startup world, a lot of people know my expertise and my passion. So there are constantly a lot of people asking for that connection, or some other people, some investor will refer them, hey, you have that problem, you connect with them. And I think that actually helped. Because, for instance, a lot of startups, especially in the beginning, they're short on, okay, I know how to code, but I don't know how to build. I know how to build, but I don't know how to build in scale. So I think those are the knowledge base that is really not easily to collect at the same time. And I hate to say, OpenTron make a lot of mistakes in the beginning. Even today, we're still learning, right? We actually like to share experience. I have helped quite a bit of a startup along the way. Even today, I can constantly see founders, they are misguided. They don't know enough. The last thing as a startup really suffer them is they don't know what they don't know. And as a founder, there's a limited amount of time. I always joke around, as a founder, every day you have so many balls in the air, and all of them sometimes looks like on fire. And I tell them, oh, drop all the balls first. You're crazy, drop all the balls. I say, look, all the balls just red, it's not on fire. There's one on fire, so you just find out which one on fire. So I kind of help them to digest it out. So I think the community part help, especially now you can find out who actually have the right advice to help you to do something that it makes sense to you. Otherwise, a lot of startups tend to, hey, I'm going to ask my friend. I say, what have your friend done? Well, he's done nothing, and you ask for his advice. So it's not very good advice, right? He could be worse than advice that you have given. And so that kind of helped to organize or help, I think, different startup. I also reach out for some other mentor that I have along the way learned. So I think mentorship or advice, the good advice is actually very important.
And while you mentioned that, what's your advice about getting a mentor? If you don't do know you're naive, where would you go about?
Totally. So maybe I might say something that some people might not like. A lot of academic people come out first, and especially PhD, grad student, all this came out. They tend to ask advice from their associate, like advisor, professor, and all these other things. Even they start the company and all this. And I tell them, I respect your advisor. Some of them are really Nobel Prize and all these other people. I say, they're very good on that area, but not how to build a company. Building a company, building a professional football team. You're not playing a brain cell, even though you intellectual, you're important. But the execution, which one is first? which one is second, is critical. Your advisor that you learn in that moment before you're in grad school, I respect that professor. I say there's nothing wrong with it. But as you migrate out, become an industry, you need to get the advice from someone. I typically suggest that someone have like 3 or 4 years ahead of you. They have built a company much later stage successfully, even failure. They learn a lot of things. And there, rather than they have built a company 30 years ago, and they tell you now how to run a company. I say, I respect those people. They're wonderful. They're really successful. But the experience is, I hate to say, is outdated. So as a founder or startup or some crazy idea you want to ask somebody, ask someone who's a little ahead of you, 4 or 5 years, and see what is their advice. That I think is more valuable, at least.
That's thank you. It's very insightful.
Chiu, I think that's very good wisdom.
Yeah.
I think from my side, actually, I'm not qualified to even take a peek into this topic. But I just want to say one thing. I think it's sometimes things are very simple and fundamental. Basically, whatever you do, whether you're a startup of some technology, I'm an advisor to 3 startups in Vietnam. I think there are certain fundamental things. You need to know the operating environment. You need to get your product to the point that people want to take the money from their pocket and put into your product or your company. You need to be able to do that type of, business planning and projection and financial projection, and somehow show the IRR that would whet the appetite for the people to put the money in. And you want to make sure that you're not projecting this, far-fetched, and it has to be reasonable within a certain reasonable range, something like that, something very fundamental. For me, the most important thing that I would, in addition to the points I mentioned earlier, when you go to an emerging market, a developing country, knowing your operating environment is extremely critical. So if you start up something in a place or in the market, you better know your operating environment, because that's huge. That would kill. That would make your. So that's the thing that I want to contribute to what you have said.
Can I ask, Tree, have you ever had, it was just related, have you ever had a mentor to kind of help you get where you are, or anyone you sought advice from?
Well, I have been lucky. And you will see this. I think when I say I'm lucky, because if I look back into my life in different junctions, I had somebody to help me. And it was God, or I was lucky, basically, right? I think at the end of the day, you have to have a sense of where you're going, and then some people will show up.
Yes.
You put up your good heart, you use your friend, some people will show up. And you don't lose hope on that, because there will be good people along the way to help you. But when they show up, you need to know to appreciate it and to grab that, right? Mm-hmm. That's my lifetime experience. That's it.
Great. And are you currently being a mentor for people that are under your the startup that you're working with as well, Mr. Tree?
Is that the question for you?
For you.
For you.
Say again.
So are you currently mentoring people that you're working with?
Right? I am also very fortunate. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I returned to Vietnam. I think after 28 years, and I know this video is recorded, but please don't distribute to the World Bank Group, because after 28 years, I figured out that I was a staff member out of 20,000 staff member. So when I came back to Vietnam, I've been able to use whatever little knowledge I can to assist many others. And I think that's how you find satisfaction out of your professional career, out of your life, because you wake up every morning and knowing that the next 2, 5, 10 minutes, you can help somebody. And I think that is absolutely critical to your spiritual growth, to your professional growth. Is that you feel your work is being appreciated. And I'm so lucky right now. I have a platform, and actually, if you go to my website, you will see I often organizing seminar and network, and I bring everyone together. People who has knowledge, people are starting their career, and just in an intimate platform can share perspective. Perspectives are important, not technique, not textbook. That you can get, right? But perspective help you to see the direction, and I think that's very critical when you are young. I wish that when I was 21 years old, I had a mentor, but again, I got a job from the World Bank through a friend. Somebody showed up and gave me the job. Everybody has a PhD in MIT and Harvard. I had a BA in economics from Catholic University. So I think you take whatever life give you and move on and try to do your best. So in summary, I'm very lucky to be where I am right now.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned a lot about your spiritual growth as well as like mentoring people finding purpose in your work. I think that's very important, as a lot of the viewers are people who are still in school, who definitely need that guidance once they're out of university. James, do you want to take the next question?
Sure. I also wanted to just say a quick tip I found that you can just email anyone, and almost a lot of people will respond. Like
Yes.
I emailed. I didn't know these people, but like the CEO of Capital One, the founder of Y Combinator, which is like the investment firm in Silicon Valley, the CEO of Airbnb. I never met these people, but you send like a 2-sentence thing, keep it really short and to the point. Don't ask anything vague like I want feedback, like I want to call. Just say exactly what you want. They'll generally respond, or if you keep following up and keep it specific, it's like people generally appreciate that. I wanted to ask, there was another question from the audience for Tree, and it was asking, how do you see Vietnam growing in the coming years? You mentioned it's growing 5% every year, but do you see more and more students, like as they graduate, going to schools outside of Vietnam, or are they returning, and how do you see that?
First of all, Vietnam has been very lucky. From day one to now, we have not really been hit by the pandemic as much as the rest of the world. So, and if before that, for the last 10, 12 years, we have been able to maintain stable exchange rate, control inflations, and 5 to 7% GDP growth. So there is in almost every year, when we ask, when you go around the world, you ask which country has the highest growth, Vietnam always be in 1 to 3. And there are many reasons for that. And I'm not going to go to, this is not a Vietnam session, but basically we are well naturally endowed and very humanly endowed. You know that we have had a history of almost 5,000 years, and most of those 5,000 years were fighting wars, being invaded, being manipulated, being threatened, all these sort of things. So that kind of human spirit of being, of surviving, of getting, doing the best you can to get a better days, I think it's very much with the current 100 million people populations. And we also enjoy from what I said the earlier issue, autocracy versus democracy. We basically got the better part of the autocracy part, meaning that in the time of crisis, in the times of pandemic, you need discipline. You need someone to tell you, just wear your face mask. Don't do anything else. If you don't wear a face mask, you pay $100 fine. Everyone face mask in Vietnam for the last 12, 14 months. right? So I think with that, I think basically it's a good base to continue to expect Vietnam to do well. But as I say, you got to be humble. We have to be humble. We've been lucky. So let's work on that, and then just carry on with humility, and make sure that every one of us here give our best efforts. But I think that we are, if you look into the map of Vietnam, it's well situated. On top is China, below is Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. On the right hand side is Philippines. So we are right at the middle of Asia, where North Asia will be trading with South Asia. So with that type of logistic position, I think we're very well positioned to continue to do well. But again, as I said, after the pandemic, the only thing I learned is everything is possible. So we have to be humble and continue to work hard.
Thanks for the perspective, Tree.
Very insightful. And my next question is back to you, Chill. Your company is based on the demand for automation, and you have clients over the world, not only in the US or Asia. And this is a very hot topic at Northeastern community, but how is automation going to disrupt work and business in the future? And do you think that workers should be afraid of automation, or is it an opportunity for growth?
Yeah, I think it's definitely relevant. First of all, automation is inevitable. Humans have been working on automation since very beginning, right? From automobile to dishwasher, for robot to vacuuming and everything. We innovate to have time to become doing things we like to do. I always tell people I'm one of the laziest person because I just want to do things I like to do. Playing racquetball, go outside for kayak, and all this other thing. I think innovation to make it automated, so we have spent time something that we enjoy is where the human nature is. You just can't avoid it. So I think on that token is coming. And I think during the pandemic, automation in the life science has pushed to a new arena. Because if you talk about automation 5 years ago, especially in life science and all this, people just don't want to talk about it. They say, he basically afraid to take my job. A lot of older generation especially, but even younger generation, they kind of protect themselves, tend to. But with the pandemic come along, they find out, I can no longer handle this kind of volume. I think this is really key coming in. The world just have a tsunami coming in. You can't use the same weapon or same tool to handle a tsunami. Now, when a tsunami comes, you got to build a wall much higher than you can ever dream of. So during this pandemic issue, come back to it, people push to a new level of, okay, how we can solve the problem. And honestly, that's how human can advance much further and faster than before. Now people understand, in order to solve this problem, we have to have a different tool. So that's why automation really come down to a point that you bring us all together and coherently agree this is what we need to do. So I think on that, definitely there will have people afraid to change. Change is not something that people embrace, unfortunately. Change is more like the young people, they dream. But I always tell people, dream is really beautiful. In fact, that's something that we actually should try something new, and unfortunately for those reluctant to change, I have to say, I don't see any other opportunity, or you just get expired, unfortunately. Yeah.
Hey, that was a very insightful answer. And and on the topic of that, Tree, I want to ask you, do you think these shifts in automation will affect workers in Asia or the countries that they live in?
I think, of course, even in Vietnam, Vietnam has, if I remember correctly, Vietnam has the second highest smartphone per capita in the world, second or third. So what Vietnam is now doing is just to take that leap. They leap, upward and passing different stages, because technology, you come in and Vietnam is very, the Vietnamese DNA. They very the young people are very progressive. They want to catch up with the rest of the world. And so they work very hard. I mean, around the world, you have best university students around the world are Vietnamese. So I think that obviously we have also a very well-educated populations, a young one. I think 75% of Vietnamese populations is below 32 or 30 years old. And it's 99%. So I think Vietnam was China basically 20, 25 years ago, right? And with cheap labor and stuff like that. So yeah, I think automation will come, but again, I'm the yang of thing, and Chiu is the yin of thing. So my yang of thing would caution. I think a lot of problems in the US, for example, or in the Western world, is that technology goes too fast. The human being, with all of our desire, all our basic need, or our basic capacity to absorb this thing, is not catching up, and that's why you have gaps, you have problems. The problem before, when I was in the US, is now 10 times, 100 times bigger because of social media, for example, right? So I think that, but in the case of Vietnam, what you have, and I think that's why I'm saying, with the pandemic, everything in life is possible. So let's see how an autocratic government like Vietnamese government, who has been able to control the pandemic, will be able to take advantage of a technology, but somehow make sure that that gap is not widened enough to cause social disturbance or whatever, things that would actually at the end slow down the growth, slow down the country progress. So but that's excitement, right? I mean, that's human being journey to improve our life in different side of setting. I think it's important for the West to learn from Asia, and from Asia to learn from the West. But I think we need to be open-minded. We need to treat each other with respect. Sometimes things are not wrong or right. Sometimes things are, can we sit together? Can we share with each other? And can we do things together? So automation, for example, for me, like you say, I love automation, but there are certain parts that I would never be able to say, oh, that replaced this, right? And I think that, again, personal preference, cultural preference, society values, and stuff like that. So I think it's remains to be seen in Vietnam whether how that works out in a bigger scale. I think you asked me a question that is more specific and more concrete. I don't have an answer to that, but what I'm seeing is an overall, as a growing country, we need automation, and we will use automation but to what kind of combination and how you balance it with other things. That to me, that's a very big challenge for the government, but I'm sure that we figure out a way, one way or the other.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Tree. Sure.
Thanks to both of you for the discussion today.
Yes. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So to conclude the event today, I'd like to thank James for being a wonderful co-host with me, and Tree and Chu. On the behalf of the Young Global Leaders, I want to thank, we're proud to have you as members of the Northeastern community now. And a few words about the Young Global Leaders. We're a group of Northeastern alumni who represent the international reach of our beloved Huntington campus. Living in countries big and small, the YGLs are changed in the unique responsibility of fostering Northeastern connections around the globe. We are President Joseph Aoun's go-to representatives in our home countries, sharing our perspectives, supporting strategic initiative, and hosting strategic gatherings as well. There are more than 120 of us today, but a few YGLers are an alumni of Northeastern were especially involved in bringing this program together. And I want to give them a special thanks today. Lynn Lee Sharon from Vietnam, who is in Damore McKim School of Business 2021. Basao Junblad from Lebanon, who's also Damore McKim, class of 2017. Luc Nguyen from Vietnam College of Engineering, 2013. If you have enjoyed this program or want to support Northeastern in any way, you can. We will send out a link after this program along with a recording of the event. Thank you for joining us. And we had a wonderful time bringing this program together.